center court, July 6th, evening session. She had just lost the match. The crowd would not stop clapping. Jasmine Paolini walked off with the win, 4-6, 6-4, 6-3. Alexandra Eala walked off with a loss, but every seat in that stadium stayed pointed at her, not the winner. Fans who had queued since sunrise stood up and refused to sit back down. Roger Federer, watching from the royal box, stayed on his feet with everyone else. It stretched long enough that people watching from home started asking why a losing player was getting a send-off like that. Here's the strange part. Wimbledon crowds are famous for their manners, polite applause, quiet changeovers, restraint between points. They are not famous for standing this long for someone who just lost a tennis match. Beaten players usually get a nod and a wave. Eala got a stadium that refused to sit down. So what did a 21-year-old from Quezon City do in 2 weeks that made thousands of people stop treating a loss like a loss? That's what this video answers. Alex Eala arrived at Wimbledon 2026 ranked world no. 32. Outside tennis, almost nobody knew that name. By the time she left, she was projected to climb to a career-high no. 28, the first Filipina ever seeded at a Grand Slam, and the first to reach the second week of a major. Here is the hard number. 4 rounds. Zara Zua in straight sets. Maya joint in 3, after Eala dropped the opener. Then Iga Swiatek, the defending champion, world no. 3 beaten 7-6, 6-2 in the round of 32. One result knocked a reigning champion out of the top 10 and turned a fringe storyline into headlines across multiple countries overnight. Here is the human detail. Eala trained as a teenager at the Rafael Nadal Academy in Mallorca, thousands of miles from a country with almost no professional tennis infrastructure of its own. She built her game on courts and ocean away from home, because home didn't have the courts to build it on. This wasn't a one-tournament fluke. Either she came into Wimbledon off a 12-4 record on grass this season, a WTA 125 title in Birmingham, and a semifinal run in Berlin. The Swiatek win didn't come out of nowhere. It came at the end of a build-up almost nobody outside the sport was watching. 4 rounds in, she was 1 match from the Wimbledon quarterfinals. But here's what nobody noticed while everyone was busy celebrating the Swiatek upset. Jasmine Paolini beat her in the 4th round, and even the winner didn't talk like she'd beaten a nobody. "It's great, stepping on this court," Paolini said afterward, calling the atmosphere something she'd been looking forward to for weeks, not the language of a 13th seed brushing past an unranked opponent she expected to handle easily. Caroline Wozniacki, watching from the broadcast side, said Eala's best days were still ahead of her, pointing not to the shots, but to how she carried herself under that kind of pressure across a 2-hour 21-minute match. A former world no. 1 doesn't hand that out for a highlight reel. She hands it out for composure, and composure is the one thing that doesn't show up in a scoreline. ESPN's tennis desk went further, framing the real takeaway from Eala's fortnight as the way she handled the moments that mattered most, not the history she made simply by getting there. That's a very specific kind of praise. It's not she's talented, it's she's ready. Here's the stat that backs up all 3 of them. That win over Swiatek pushed Eala's career record against top 10 opponents to 7 wins and 4 losses. That's not one lucky afternoon in London. That's a player who has now beaten elite competition 7 separate times, across different tournaments, different surfaces, different years, a track record, not a moment. So what actually stopped her from going further? Not nerves, not the occasion, her second serve. Twice in this tournament, opponents went hunting for the same shot. Against Paolini, Eala's second serve dropped into the high 60 mph range under pressure, and Paolini's game plan was obvious from the first game: attack the shot she can't hide. In the 4th game of the first set, Paolini pounced on a weak second serve for the match's first break. She did it again late in the 3rd set, tied at 3 games all, forcing a double fault and a loose backhand that put her 1 game from the finish line. This isn't a fan account observation, it's the same pattern across multiple independent match recaps, from outlets with no stake in the story either way. Eala's first serve troubles anyone on tour. It's a genuine weapon. Her second serve, under the specific pressure of a deciding set on the sport's biggest court, is still the shot opponents go looking for, and she hasn't hidden it yet. That gap matters more than any single loss. Wimbledon is one surface, one tournament, 2 weeks a year. The US Open, the Australian Open, and the biggest hard-court events on tour all reward exactly the kind of aggressive second serve return Paolini used to end this run. Hard courts produce faster, flatter returns off a short ball than grass does. If that serve doesn't tighten before Washington, D.C. later this month, the next player facing Eala on a big stage already has the scouting report written for her. Wait for the second ball and swing early. It's a fixable problem. Players have rebuilt serves under pressure before, at every level of the sport. But fixable and fixed are not the same thing. And until it's fixed, every big match Eala plays comes with a target drawn on the same shot. And that is what makes the next 12 months so important. Here is what I want to know from you. Eala just beat a defending Wimbledon champion. She also just lost a winnable match on the same shot, twice. So predict it. Does Alex Eala break into the WTA top 20 before this season ends? Or does that second serve keep costing her the biggest matches? Drop your prediction below, right now, before you keep watching. Zoom out past the Philippines for a second, because this isn't only a national story. Every tennis nation has a version of this moment. One player who forces an entire country to watch a sport it never had the infrastructure to build. Eala did it for China in 2011, winning the French Open in a country with almost no clay courts to speak of at the time. Naomi Osaka did something similar for Japan a few years later. Neither arrived with a domestic tennis pipeline behind her. Both became the pipeline. The reason facilities and juniors programs got funded afterward, not before. The Philippines had never had a Grand Slam quarterfinal caliber run, never had a top 30 WTA player, never had a player seeded at a major until this month. Eala is compressing into a single fortnight what those players built across full seasons. And she did it in front of center court, a few meters from Roger Federer sitting in the stands, on the same lawn that made his own name. Here's the frame for anyone who's never followed a single match of Philippine tennis. You don't need that history to recognize what a 21-year-old beating a defending slam champion does to her career trajectory. That result alone reshapes seeding, draws, and expectations at every tournament she plays for the next 12 months, regardless of the flag next to her name on the scoreboard. Even neutral analysts covering the tournament, with no connection to the Philippines and no reason to inflate the story, described her run the same way: proof she belongs with the tour's elite, not a feel-good underdog arc that quietly ends when the cameras leave London. A gap in a serve is a technical problem, the kind coaches fix in a season. A country with almost no tennis infrastructure producing a Wimbledon quarterfinal level run is not a technical problem at all. It's a data point. It changes what a kid in Manila or Cebu or any country without a tennis tradition to lean on now believes is possible for herself. Center Court, July 6th, evening session. Now you know why the clapping wouldn't stop. It wasn't for a girl who lost a tennis match. It was for a 21-year-old who had just spent 2 weeks proving a country with no Grand Slam history could produce a player good enough to beat a defending champion on the sport's biggest stage with a serve that still isn't finished being built. My prediction: Eala cracks the WTA top 20 within 12 months, but only once that second serve stops being the shot every scouting report circles in red. So here's that question again. Top 20 by next season, or does the second serve keep finding her in the biggest matches? Tell me your prediction below, and tell me why. If you want the matches nobody else is breaking down like this, the ones underneath the ranking and the highlight reel, that's what this channel does. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.